Okay, at yan po ang malaking pagdiriwang po o commemoration dito po sa Australia tuwing ikadalawamput isa 25 ng Abril. Ayan po ang sinasabing ah, tawag dito, Anzac Day. Alright, salamat. Maraming salamat Ate G, Dabarka G sa iyong pagla-live live simulcast sa YouTube. Okay? At okay, tungayan naman po natin ang iba pa mga balita dito po sa atin sa Australia. Ako po, isa na namang builder po dito sa Melbourne. At sa Melbourne siguro ito at ay medyo lumagapok na naman po. Nagbangkarote na naman po. Kaya marami na naman pong mga heartbroken na mga first home buyers na naipit po dito sa pagbangkarote nitong builder na ito. Kung natatandaan po ninyo, yung unang isang builder ay kamakailan, last week po yun, ay nagbangkarote po. Mas malaki po yun. Ito, medyo kakaunti po ang mga client nito. Pero ganun pa man, malaki na rin po. I think nasa mga 700 po. Marami-rami na rin yun. Ang mga apektadong mga first home o mga home buyers. Okay, panoorin po
Devastated
natin.
Marcourt customers have reacted with heartache and anger after the company collapsed, leaving hundreds of homes unfinished. Many fear they could lose their deposits, claiming the business failed to take out proper insurance. Reid Butler has today's developments.
Nikki and Ryan had grand plans when they put down their $24,000 home deposit.
Have another baby, get a dog, that white picket fence lifestyle.
Now they face the prospect of losing their hard-earned money.
This is now our reality and there may never be a home here. When we did this, we never thought that this would happen to us.
Properties from Urban Edge and 8 homes under Marcorp in limbo after the company entered voluntary administration. Nikki Estrada has spent around $300,000 on her build at this Clyde estate.
I've put my heart and soul into it for my son. I've worked so hard to get where I am now and there's no answers and I just want to know what's happening.
Patrick's home, also unfinished.
My wife is pregnant, so I don't know how to begin,
Nikki and Ryan believe Marcorp failed to take out mandatory domestic building insurance when it took their money.
We're just a bit baffled at the lack of protection, if that is the case.
Porter Davis did the same, meaning more than 500 customers lost their deposits.
And this appears to be a systemic problem in the industry. What we need now is the Andrews government to step up, to take the appropriate action when it comes to what the regulator needs to do.
A one-off government scheme will compensate the Porter Davis home buyers, but Marcorp told 9 News their customers' deposits are safe for now, as the company is not in liquidation. Construction on more than 700 homes, including this one, has now been halted, and it will stay that way for at least the next 5 weeks, as the company urgently assesses its business operation. Until then, the agonising wait continues. Reid Butler, 9 News.
Okay, nakikiramay po tayo sa mga nararamdaman ng ating mga kabarangay at although sinasabi pa naman po ng Marcorp na hindi po sila in liquidation kundi nagre-restructure lang po ng kanilang business. So kahit manawari ay tama po yung sinasabi nila. At legit po yung sinasabi nila. Okay? Samantala, yun naman po sa Bureau of Statistics ay napakarami pong mga Australian businesses ang lumagapak sa taong ito, sa nakalipas na 6 na buwan. Dahil nga po sa epekto ng unang-una nung pandemya, sumunod ay inflation, recession, okay, at yung nagbabantang recession, okay, inflation at saka tawag dito, inflation at saka yung ano po, depression ang susunod dyan, recession.
Well, the number of businesses collapsing in Australia has hit the highest level in almost 4 years.
Let's bring in economics editor at the Australian Financial Review, John Kerr.
Hey,
John,
Johnny.
good morning. Now, what's driving this increase in businesses and their insolvencies?
Yes, good morning, guys. Look, the corporate insolvency wave is really just starting to hit. Last month, we saw 831 companies put into administration, according to corporate regulator data. Now, that's not only higher than during COVID, when there was a bit of a lull, when there was stimulus payments and banks and the tax office went easy on businesses. It's also higher than the pre-COVID average. And there's a few things driving this. Obviously, rising interest rates, the end of the cheap money era makes it tougher for businesses and consumers pulling back on their spending. But also the banks and tax office now are starting to chase the debts harder as well. So they're less forgiving, going after the money that's owed, and that's also driving some companies to the wall as well.
At a time when they're really struggling, it's hard, isn't it? Which industries are most hurting?
Yeah, but Carl, obviously the housing construction industry is the highest profile one with the collapse of Porter Davis and other home builders recently, but it's broader than that. It's going into other industries, retail, accommodation and food services and manufacturing. And if you look at some of the names of the businesses that are going under, we've had the transport group Scott's, the beauty and skincare provider BWX, and also other firms across the company like Tribe Brewing in the craft brewing space, as well as Sun Cable, which is the big renewable energy project backed by Mike Cannon-Brookes, the billionaire, and also Andrew Forrest. That's had administrators called in. So across the board, across industries, they are starting to feel the pinch.
Okay, look, it all doesn't bode well. The RBA saying this morning that the increase in immigration may be inflationary, and all this adds pressure for a rate rise next month.
Absolutely. Well, look, we're going to get some really important quarterly inflation data next week, and I think that's going to determine whether the Reserve Bank lifts interest rates. In their minutes they released yesterday from their previous board meeting, Carl and Sarah, they made clear they're not necessarily done raising interest rates just yet. The pause might only be temporary, so all eyes will be on that inflation data next week.
Good on you, Johnny. Thank you.
Nakakalungkot na balita na sa loob ng 4 na taon po talagang marami pong mga maliliit na mga negosyo ang nagsarahan po at naapektuhan po na nitong pandemya, nitong recession, ito pong inflation at saka po pagtaas ng lahat ng mga bagay-bagay. Lahat po nagtataasan. At, kung hindi po ninyo napuna ang inyo pong mga grocery bills, ay umabot ng almost 20% ay increase. At alam niyo po ba, susunod pong shock na makakashock sa atin, yung ating pong gas. Kung hindi po ninyo nababalitaan ang gas po, liquefied natural gas na ating po ginagamit sa pagluluto at saka sa heating po, ay tataas po ng bigla pong pagtaas. Alam niyo kung bakit? Dahil yung pong liquefied natural gas natin ay yun po ang ibig sabihin ay tawag dito, binebenta po o binibili po ng China at siyempre ipagbibili po ng yan kasi mas mahal ang offer ng China na sa bilihan, kaya ang matitira po dito sa Australia ay limitado na lang po dahil may limit din po naman ang pag-extract ng gas na yan, ng natural gas sa ating shelf, sa ating mga karagatan. May limit po yan. So kung lahat po ng gas natin na production ay bibilihin po ng o operan po yung mga company na yan ng mas mahal na halaga, na presyo, siyempre ibibenta nila doon. Walang magagawa ang gobyerno diyan. Kasi yun po lang naman ang yun lang naman po ang ang ano nila, ang kontrol lang nila ay yung paglimit po sa dami ng gas na kukunin po sa lupaing pag-aari ng Australia. Pero hindi po nila pwedeng diktahan ang mga private company na mag-iwan po ng sapat na dami ng gas po dito sa domestic market. Ayun, so kaya limitado po ang gas dito sa domestic market. Ang ating pong paggamit ay tataas dahil nga po sa taglamig na. Ayun, tataas po ng husto. Kaya kung ako sa inyo po ay wag na kayong gumamit ng gas heater at ano na lang po na inyo, maggasgasan na lang po kayo ng makapal na jacket. O makapal na kumot, pag kayo ay nasa labas at nanonood ng television po, huwag na kayo mag-heater. Magkumot na lang na kapal at lalo na po pag kayo natutulog o matutulog ay mag-electric blanket na lang po at medyo mababa po ang konsumo ng electric blanket at saka kuryente po yon. Ang kuryente po medyo katamtaman lang po ang increase. Ayan. So, yan po ang ating... Okay, samantala sa Queensland naman po, Queensland na yung mga nabarkad ka barangay natin sa labas ng Australia, Queensland po ay iba pong estado yan. Doon po yan sa may norte, doon po yan sa may dagat Pasipiko. Ito naman po ang problema ng ating mga kabarangay sa Queensland. Yung pong mga nangungupahan po ng bahay ay hirap po makakita ng mauupahan na bahay. Kaya nag-ano po sila, nag-rally po sila, nag-mass protest. Bakit? May katwiran po sila. Kailangan na ipaalam nila sa gobyerno na talagang sila po ay gipit na po. Ayan, kailangan po nila ang tulong ng pamahalaan. Alright.
Riled up renters have taken to Brisbane city streets demanding action in the crippling housing crisis. Adding to the pressure, new figures showing the hunt for rentals from abroad is surging to record levels.
Fed up and furious. Around 100 tenants marching through city streets on a mission to fight the housing crunch.
Not having enough money because your rent keeps going up, never having housing security, never having basic maintenance done. You feel like you're a second-class citizen. You feel like you're treated subhuman.
Sarah Cheam has had to move 3 times in 3 years.
And we have to constantly deal with all this anxiety. It's just not fair.
Another sticking point for these renters is the short-term accommodation market.
With long-term rental stock being turned into short stays.
The system that we live under is basically exploiting ordinary people to make a profit, essentially.
New data reveals record high immigration is putting an added squeeze on a tightening market.
Queensland features heavily in terms of the top searched regions. Now, the Gold Coast is very popular and Brisbane as well.
In the past 3 months, rent searches from overseas property seekers are up 34% on pre-pandemic levels. The Gold Coast, the most looked up location by New Zealanders.
We've also got international student arrivals rebounding at a fast pace as well.
Renters becoming increasingly concerned they're in this alone.
If renters want change, we have to get organised and we have to fight for it.
Sally Gutt joins me now in the studio. Sally, some tenants say they are fighting against the industry and politicians too.
Katrina, renters I spoke with today say politicians may not solve this crisis. And while both the LNP and Labor agree the situation with housing is difficult, stressful and frustrating, both have their own ideas on what needs to be done. The state government today pointing to legislation passed this week limiting rental increases to once a year as part of the work being done to provide rent relief. The opposition argues the community housing sector and the private market need a plan from the government to keep roofs over people's heads long term. With no one solution, many Queenslanders are just past breaking point. Katrina?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Sally, thank you.
Oh, yan po ang napakalungkot na mga balita mula po sa Brisbane, sa Queensland. So yan, at subalit totoo rin po yan na nangyayari din po dito sa atin sa Melbourne po yan, sa Victoria, yung kakulangan ng mga bahay o property na pwede pong upahan nung mga hindi po maka-afford na magpagawa ng bahay, nangungupahan na sila or whatever reason, yung mga young families, yung mga estudyante, mga international student. Ayan, dumami na naman po ang international students na bumalik po dito sa Australia pagkatapos po ng pandemic. Kaya ayun, agawan po sa mga rental properties. Okay. Okay, samantala ay ito naman pong balita, isang malungkot na balita at ito pong si Barry Humphries na mas kilala po natin sa kanyang stage name. Ano ba itong stage name ni Barry Humphries? Yeah, yun na nga, Dame Edna Everage. Yan. Ay pumanaw na po si Barry Humphries sa edad na 86. Nakikiramay po tayo sa mga kamag-anak, mahal sa buhay at mga die-hard fans ni Barry Humphries.
Barry Humphries was a giant of the Australian entertainment industry. He was a comedian, a film and stage star for more than half a century. He was responsible for creating some of our best-known characters and conquered the international stage, including London's West End and New York's Broadway. He entertained us with his colourful characters.
Hello, possums. Yes, it's me, Dame Edna, and aren't I looking gorgeous?
Charismatic creations.
And Beryl and I went to bed.
And comedic charm for more than half a century.
I think the Australian public would go for the image that I project of the senior Australian diplomat.
John Barry Humphries, the mischievous and marvellous man behind these faces, was born in Melbourne on February 17, 1934. From a young age, Barry found joy in making people laugh, often dressing up to disguise himself.
Even when I was at school, I quite liked to startle people. It gave me a feeling of identity. Otherwise, in Australia, you disappear.
Nicknamed Sonny Sam, he became a voracious reader and collector of rare books. After dropping out of law at university, he joined the newly formed Melbourne Theatre Company. It was during this time that one of his most famous characters, Edna Everage, first stepped into the spotlight as a dowdy, shy housewife from Moonee Ponds.
And hello everyone, boys and girls, teachers, headmasters, lecturers and students.
She evolved over 4 decades to become an international success story as a housewife gigastar. Barry Humphries left Australia for London at the end of the 1950s and was part of a great Australian arts exodus. Along with author Robert Hughes, journalist Clive James, feminist Germaine Greer and publisher Richard Neville, he achieved great international success. In 1964, while in London, he created the character Barry Mackenzie, described as a boozy Australian rampaging through swinging London. His adventures were serialised as a comic in the satirical magazine Private Eye. After taking centre stage in several West End productions, including Oliver and Maggie May, he returned to Australia in the early 1970s, first appearing as Edna on film in The Naked Bunyip.
Sit down. Do you sleep in a double bed or a single bed? Oh, single beds. Otherwise we have a terrible argument about the electric blanket and sometimes Norm snores, particularly if he's been to the RSL.
In 1972, Edna experienced box office success when she starred in the film version of The Adventures of Barry Mackenzie.
Wake me up when we get to Gapery.
No worries, Auntie.
Its highly anticipated sequel arrived in 1974 and saw Edna being made a dame by then Australian Prime Minister Gough Whitlam. That same year, Humphreys burst onto the scene with a new, rather offensive and uncouth cultural attaché.
I'm always dipping into my slush fund.
Sir Les Patterson was an instant hit, and so was his other, more enduring alter ego, Sandy Stone, often referred to by Humphreys as Australia's most boring man.
I went straight to bed and had a very nice night's rest.
Humphreys went global with his characters, embarking on international tours.
There was a time when Val May, you probably won't remember my daughter Val May, it was a long time ago, but they went out a little bit at one stage and I was very, very hopeful.
I remember Kenny better.
Oh, my son, yeah.
Selling out shows and mingling with royalty.
They've found me a better seat.
In 2000, he received industry praise, winning a Tony Award for his Broadway offering, Dame Edna. Decorated by both Australia and the UK, he was awarded an Officer of the Order of Australia in 1982 and a CBE for his services to entertainment in 2007. Barry Humphreys spent much of his life immersed in music, literature and the arts. In early 2012, Barry Humphreys announced his retirement and farewell tour, stating that he was beginning to feel a bit senior.
To work directly with an audience is to me the greatest pleasure of all.
The so-called retirement was not all smooth sailing. He was cancelled in 2019 by the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which he co-founded in 1987. His remarks on transgender issues were deemed unacceptable, so the festival's top prize, the Barry, named after him, was changed to the Melbourne International Comedy Festival Award.
Barry Humphreys was cancelled by the Melbourne Comedy Festival, the very festival he himself set up with Peter Cook. And Barry Humphreys is the absolute reminder of how Australian sense of humour can dominate the world.
Despite the controversy, Humphreys remained an enduring and endearing entertainer. Barry Humphreys is survived by his wife, Elizabeth Spender, and 4 children.
Thank you, boys. Thank you, girls. Thanks a lot.
Okay, paalam Dame Edna Everidge, Barry Humphreys. Yan. Okay, yan po ang aming mga comedians po dito, comedian dito sa Australia, Barry Humphreys. Ayan. Okay, so makikilala niyo po lang po si Barry Humphreys pagka kayo po ay medyo matagal-tagal na po rito sa Australia. Pagka kayo po ay mga bagito pa lang, eh mukhang hindi niyo pa napapagtuunan ng pansin niya si Barry Humphreys. Lalo ngayon ay sumakabilang buhay na po. Ayan, panoorin na lang po sa YouTube si Barry Humphreys. Okay, ngayon naman ay tutukan po natin itong development sa Sydney. Okay, for the first time po ay nabuksan na po yung tinatawag nilang underwater train tunnel sa Sydney po na magpapabilis po ng biyahe between the main CBD, main business district ng Sydney at saka yung northern part ng Sydney. Alam niyo yung northern part ng Sydney po kasi ano yan, halos nakahiwalay po yan sa main business district ng Sydney, yung Sydney City po mismo. Kaya ngayon meron na pong train na papunta po doon at dadaan po sa ilalim ng Sydney Harbour. Ayan.
History has been made with a train travelling under Sydney Harbour. While it was slow going below the water today, eventually driverless metros will race through the tunnel at more than 100 kilometres an hour.
In the early hours of the morning, the first train to pass underneath Sydney Harbour.
History being made really under our feet in the new tunnels under the harbour for the very first time.
91 years since the first steam train travelled over it.
Just the first train over the bridge.
Today, the metro crept just as carefully.
Slow speed, taking it very carefully, very controlled.
Starting at Chatswood.
Yeah, we're looking for authority to enter the tunnel at Chatswood, over.
On board, a team of engineers. Checks included whether the train actually fits through the tunnel, descending 25 metres to Crow's Nest Station, 30 metres at Victoria Cross Station. The train then travelled into history 40 metres below sea level before heading up to Barangaroo. This first journey taking 4 hours. It will get quicker.
You'll be able to get from here at Chatswood into Central in just 15 minutes.
The metro extension runs from Chatswood to Sydenham, connecting Metro Northwest and eventually the new Metro Southwest conversion to Bankstown, subject to a government review into cost blowouts.
It's the people of New South Wales' money. We need to make sure that they know how it's being spent, regardless of where these projects are up to.
During testing, bags of water will be placed on the train to replicate the weight of full carriages. Passengers won't get their turn on City Metro until sometime next year.
I like the speed. Yes, I don't mind fast trains.
Next, they'll be tested through tight curves under the city before the newest metro is ready to go. Chris Marr, 7 News.
Dito naman po sa Melbourne ay yung binibuild po dito is underground tunnel naman po na dadaan din sa ilalim ng ilog, pero hindi po train ang dadaan, mga sasakyan po, mga kotse, mga truck na mga laki. Yan. So medyo kakaiba po dahil dito po ay may train line na po na papunta doon sa kabilang pampang ng ilog. Ang problema po dito sa Melbourne ay yung pong tulay, nag-iisang tulay po na papunta po doon sa western suburbs mula po sa Melbourne City, sa Central Business District, ay yung tinatawag pong Westgate Bridge ay crowded na po, overweight na, at saka matanda na po. So nakakatakot po kahit na dumadami at bumibigat po ang mga dumadaan na mga sasakyan. Yan pong tulay na yan, yung Westgate Bridge, sa mga nakatira po dito sa Melbourne, alam nyo yan, ay yan po ang pinaka-simbolo po ng Melbourne. Parang kahalintulad po ng Golden Gate Bridge yan sa San Francisco. Dito po sa atin ang tawag ay Westgate Bridge. Alright, ayan. So pagka dumaan po kayo dyan, ay nakikita nyo po lahat ng dagat sa kabila, at sa kabila po ilog, at makikita nyo po ang silhouette o ang outline ng CBD downtown Melbourne kung kayo po nanggagaling sa western suburbs naman. Ayan. Medyo medyo talagang overcrowded na po yung tulay na yan. So pagka natuloy po itong natapos po itong tunnel na ito, lahat po ng yung mga nakikipagkarerahan tayo dyan sa mga malalaking mga truck, yan po doon na po dadaan yan sa ilalim ng tunnel. Okay. I think pwera lang siguro yung mga hazardous material na truck, yung pong mga tanker ng gasolina o petroleum, baka hindi po padaanan niya sa loob ng tunnel. At alam niyo naman, napakadelikado. Doon pa rin po yan sa ibabaw ng Westgate Bridge. So, at least kukunti na po. Tayo pong mga motorist ay dyan din po tayo dadaan sa Westgate Bridge. Pero kung gusto nyo mabilis-bilis ng biyahe, pwede po kayo din dumaan doon sa ilalim ng tunnel from Footscray. Ayan, so mabuhay yan. Ang malungkot lang po ay yung pong ating inaasahang train, fast train from Melbourne City CBD to Tullamarine Airport, yung pong international airport namin po dito sa Melbourne, ay mukhang postponed na naman po. Postponed na naman dahil naubusan ng budget si Kuya Dan. Naubusan ng budget po. So medyo postpone na naman. So in the meantime, pag kayo po ay manunundo o maghahatid ng mga kaibigan, kamag-anak sa airport, kailangan bigyan nyo po ng ample time. Okay, ayan. Kailangan po, kung 3 hours po sila before the flight na darating doon, kailangan na 2 hours, gawin nyo na pong 5 hours, dagdagan nyo po ng 2 oras na biyahe po mula sa inyong bahay.